Hey, I'm Matt, and this is Dick Stockton. We're here at the Tennis Fantasy Week, and we're going to talk about, first off, I just want to say that some people out there who might not know, you were the last person to play Rod Laver at Wimbledon, and you also played, is that Bjorn Borg's last match?
I don't think it was his last match, but it was his last year, and I think he, like Rod, and I think when they figured they found out they were losing to people like me, they said, "This is getting ridiculous."
Well, hey, those are two pretty cool wins, though.
No, it was it was a great time I thought to be playing the game professionally. A lot of people ask me, "Well, don't you wish you were playing now?" Meaning, you win the U.S. Open, you win $3.8 million or something.
Oh yeah.
And to be honest, I'm glad I played when I played. The opportunity to have come up and had the chance to play against a Rod Laver and John Newcomb, Ken Rosewall, and Arthur Ashe types, and so
Wow.
to have been able to catch some of that generation. Yes, they were past their prime, but they were they're still fantastic tennis players.
Imagine.
And it was a dream to play them. And then the guys that I grew up with, coming up through the 70s and all being ranked in the top 10 in the world, and then catching a little bit of the next generation, which was McEnroe and Lendl and Borg. I caught him all the time. I think he beat me when he was 2 because he was so good as a young kid.
I can.
So it was really a great time to be playing. But I had a feeling. It's so funny you bring up Rocket, because when I got to England that year, I said to my wife that I just have a feeling that I'm going to play either Newcomb or Laver. And I played Laver in the second round. And it was a center court match, and I think everybody, including my first wife, was rooting for Rod. I mean, she thought Rod Laver just hung the moon, and he did, and he still does. But I got through the match, but I was very, very lucky. I mean, he was for a set and a half. I was wondering what year we were in.
Yeah.
I mean, because he was so good for a set and a half that it was just annihilating me.
Yeah.
But I was just lucky. But being best of 5 sets helped, because finally his game came down a little bit.
Right.
And my game rose a little bit as we played. And so
we kind of see that with Roger Federer today with some of the younger players.
Yeah, absolutely.
He does what he always does,
Yeah.
then he might have a little dip that you're not used to seeing.
So I'm sorry he never played there again.
Yeah.
But it was great to. I mean, I had some good matches with him.
Yeah.
One time I had 2 match points on my serve against him and lost, and so this was my only win. I'm sorry it was his last one.
Yeah, it was a big deal for you at the time, I'm sure.
No, it was. It really was. To have a win on your resume that you beat arguably the greatest player of all time.
So that's when Laver hung up the racket. When did you hang up the racket?
I haven't hung it up yet.
When did you retire from the tour, should I say?
I stopped off the main tour in 1984.
Okay. The year of Johnny Mack.
Yeah. And so I played about 12 years full time.
Okay.
And then after that, I played some 35 and overs, and then I played some 45 and overs. And so I stayed somewhat active, just playing it, going to Wimbledon, because they would, you could play in the senior events and the U.S. Open. That was always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And and I still play. I don't play competitively anymore, but I play several times a week, and I love it. I love playing.
I saw you play last year.
Yeah.
You're pretty good.
No, actually,
still playing a pretty high level.
No, it's a funny game, because I've been playing for 62 years, and there are actually some things I do better now than I ever did.
Really?
My forehand is better than if I had the forehand that I have now. If I had 40 years ago, I might have been dangerous.
Really?
I mean, I could always serve, and I could volley, and I could hit backhand, but my forehand was a weakness. It was just But I finally learned how to do it.
What's different about it today versus back then?
I finally learned how to hit it a little bit with confidence. And that came, really, believe it or not, from late in my playing career, being forced in the game in doubles to have to play the deuce court. I had always been an ad court player.
Oh yeah, that's what I like.
And as an ad court player, I'd pull my backhand cross court because that was my best shot. And if anybody served my forehand, I would just kind of guide it away from the net man. I never really hit it. When you're in what we call the zone, which happens maybe once or twice in your life, during those weeks, my forehand was fine.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it was somewhat of a liability. But when I started having to play the deuce court is to play that court effectively, you have to be looking to hit forehand and really hit the ball. So whether you're hitting it cross court as a return, or whether you're hitting a few up the line as a return, or your second shot, or maybe through the middle, you can't be passive and just try to get it in. You've got to be aggressive with it.
You can't really just look for inside out forehand or backhands the whole
No,
time.
I mean
you got
to have that shot too as a return.
But they're not going to make you play that
Right,
all
but
the time.
after that, you're looking to hit forehand. I mean, you watch all the great deuce court players, whether it was John Newcomb or whether it was Stan Smith or whoever it was, they're looking to hit forehands all day long. And they can control the point doing that. And I got forced into having to play that side late in my career because I was playing with guys who were adamant that there's no way they were ever going to go over there. So if I wanted to play with them, I had to play the deuce court. And I finally learned to hit my forehand a little bit.
All right. So after you stopped playing, you started the Blue Sky Foundation.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, it came about throughout my career. I had the opportunity to play in hundreds, if not thousands, of charity events. Pro celebrities, pro-ams, or exhibition type things that were normally fundraisers for this charity or that charity. And I even ran a few myself when I lived in Dallas too, raising money for different children's charities. And I loved it. I loved every part of it. And my wife was a former D1 tennis player and is a teaching pro still. And so she had helped me organize some of them. And at one point we started talking about, what are we going to do with the rest of our lives?
Right.
And we thought we would. So we created this foundation. And what we were going to do with it originally was to try to organize pro-am events, tennis and golf or whatever, as a way to raise money for different children's charities, like Make-A-Wish Foundation or this or that, whatever it might be. Well, the timing was terrible when we started it because the economy was starting to go into the tank. And there was no way we were going to find any money.
Ago?
Yeah, it's 2008. No way we were going to find any money to do anything.
Right.
So we just kind of kept it afloat. We paid our annual fees to the state to maintain our status as a 501c3. And then in 2012, we came up with this idea of creating a program the basic idea was to thank our folks in the military and their families for the sacrifices they make on a daily basis for the rest of us. And we said, well, the only thing we really know is tennis. Can we use tennis to do that? And so we started pursuing the idea. Everybody thought it was a good idea. And so it just morphed into this concept of taking the game of tennis to military bases, right to the folks where they live and work, and organize and offering tennis clinics to them. And see, the first one we did was at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, which is a huge Army base.
Yeah.
40,000, 50,000 people live there. But the folks there said, "Whoa, this is a great idea," but they said, "We don't know if anybody here plays tennis anymore.
Yeah.
We don't know. You're welcome to come if you want, but we can't promise you that anybody's going to show up."
Which I imagine that's a little intimidating.
Well, it was.
Trying to run this
it
thing.
makes you a little nervous. But so the first year we decided, let's just do 2 events as a test. If it works, we'll continue and we'll grow it. And if it doesn't work, then we'll know that we're barking up the wrong tree.
Right.
So we went to Fort Bragg and we had about 150 people signed up for our clinics. And it rained cats and dogs the whole day. We had to take everything into this big gym and set up 8 or 9 mini nets along the floor, and even with the adults, just basically playing short court tennis with low compression balls, and it was the most fun ever.
Yeah.
So, and then we did one more later in the year, and it was just as successful. And we said, "Hey, we're onto something here."
Yeah, absolutely.
They are begging us to come back. Every place we've been, they said, "Please come back." One baser said, "Can you come 2 or 3 times a year?"
Yeah.
So the response has been amazing, and so we've continued it. And we live in Florida. We've traveled as far north as West Point in New York, to do events, and we've traveled as far west as San Antonio to do events.
What year was the first clinic you did?
2013.
2013. Okay, so we're about 5 years in.
Yeah.
What do you? I saw you guys just wrapped up in San Antonio here.
We did.
What do you have on the books for 2019?
We're not really sure. We don't know our schedule for 2019 yet.
Okay.
We still have one more event at Homestead Air Reserve Base outside Miami, and that's in early December. And then we'll start. We actually, I mean, it's funny you ask, because just my wife who was here last week when we did the event before she went back to Florida, and we started talking about 2019.
Her name's Liz, right?
Her name is Liz. Yeah.
Liz.
And we doing one in San Antonio area is convenient because we always do it the day before fantasy camp.
Yeah.
So we're here anyway. It's a special one for me because I went to school in San Antonio, and I get a lot of some of my former teammates to come play. I get other graduates to come help out. I get kids who are on the teams at Trinity University now to come out and help. So it's kind of it becomes a Trinity event as well. And so obviously we're going to do that. We'd love to go back to West Point.
Yeah.
It was an unbelievable event we had there back in August. Unbelievable. And we do a couple in Florida, MacDill Air Force Base. We'll probably see how the Homestead thing works out and maybe go back there. And we'd like to be able to.
MacDill, that's Tampa?
MacDill is in Tampa.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been there a ton. That's the one where we've been more than once a year.
Okay. Well, that's where you're based out of, right?
Well, we're in West Palm Beach.
Oh, yeah, that's where I'm from.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So we try to go back to the bases where we've been. We can't hit them all every year.
Right.
As an example, Andrews Air Force Base, which is the second one. Other one we did that very first year, and which is a fabulous base, a very famous base, obviously. And
yeah.
We've been there 4 times in 6 years, and Fort Bragg we've been 4 times in 6 years. Fort Bragg is always going to be on our list because it was our very first one, so it's kind of a special one in that regard. But we've been to Marine bases, we've been to Army bases, we've been to Air Force bases. We've never been on a Navy base. We had one scheduled 2 years ago in Jacksonville, and believe it or not, we were going to do
that base.
Yeah,
before.
Mayport.
Yeah.
Fabulous base, and a fellow I had met an admiral. He actually came to our event at Andrews Air Force Base, and because he was stationed at the Pentagon at the time, and then he became the commander of the 4th Fleet out of Jacksonville, and so we set this whole thing up to go to Jacksonville, and I said to him, I said, Admiral Buck, what do you think about the idea of doing the clinics on the deck of a carrier?
Oh man, that would be so cool.
He said, what are you talking about? I said, no, just go with me here for a minute. I said, yeah, we'll just bring the mini nets. We don't need any court lines. We'll just hit some balls back and forth with the kids and anybody else who wants to come out. He said, not a bad idea. Obviously, we've done basketball games here on deck. They do them out in San Diego on the deck of a carrier. And so it was the USS Iwo Jima, and I went to to visit the base, and the ship happened to be in port that day, and he took me on the ship. And I mean, the size of these things. And it's not even an aircraft carrier, it's really a helicopter carrier, but it's enormous.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so I'm walking the deck, and it's like 800 feet long. Now, the surface is not that great for tennis, obviously. It's going to chew up the tennis balls, but who cares? I mean, just the uniqueness of the opportunity to be on the deck of a carrier, the publicity to get out of something like that would have been mind-boggling. But unfortunately, 5 days before the event, over in the South Pacific somewhere, there was another one of these, I don't know what you even call it, when the ships collided.
Yeah.
And it always happens over there with these Navy ships, so it's hard to believe it's all coincidental. But
in the South China Sea?
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of stuff happens there.
Yeah, and it was the USS John McCain.
Okay.
10 sailors were killed. And it was, and then after that, the Navy basically shut down operations for 3 or 4 days. And we're 5 days out. And I'm thinking, this is probably not a good time to be going to Jacksonville. Maybe Iwo Jima will be sailing by then anyway to get
over there.
So a couple of days later, I contacted the admiral and I said, I wanted to give him an out, basically. I didn't think he was going to call me to say we can't do it, which he didn't. But I said, hey, if this is really not a very good week to be there, I understand. And he said, it's really not a very good week.
Well, it's good on you, mate.
So, so we didn't get to do it.
But maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future. Unfortunately, he is now being transferred to NATO headquarters in Brussels. So I don't know anybody at Mayport, but I'm sure he could help. He could help me talk to the right people there, or do it somewhere else. But,
Yeah, that would be great.
so anyway, it would have been so cool. Could you imagine?
Oh yeah,
playing
absolutely.
tennis on the deck of a carrier.
My dad was on aircraft carriers, so
Really?
we used to vacation there in Jacksonville at that base. So yeah, I've been on a couple. They're pretty cool.
So that's what we're doing. It's been an amazing run. We've had terrific support from other former pros, touring pros, from local teaching pros to college kids like the Trinity kids who come, and others that come, and high school kids and amateurs who hear about this. I mean, somebody was just talking to me this morning and saying, God, the next time you're doing it in San Antonio, I'll come in a day early too because I want to help.
Yeah.
So it's really been cool. It's become a big family.
What if somebody's watching that wants to help? Is there a place they could donate, or is there a way they can come and be an assistant coach or something like that?
Absolutely. Our website is www.theblueskyfoundation.com.
All right.
And the whole website is dedicated to the Boots on the Court program. There's nothing else on there, so that you can donate there. You can see see pictures of where we've been and what we've been doing, and the email address is on there. I mean, if somebody wants to say, hey, I live in wherever, I live in Norfolk, and if you're ever in this area, I love tennis and I would love to help out. We'd love to have them because we're always needing volunteers. Never enough. Can't have too many volunteers.
Well, hey, you ever thought about coming to Atlanta, to Dobbins?
No.
Dobbins Air Force Base.
I'm there.
Me and Peter Freeman, we'll be there.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, one thing before we go, and remember it's theblueskyfoundation.com, right?
Yes.
Last thing, so this morning we had the morning lesson, and we already talked a little bit about how the backhand's your shot.
Yeah.
Backhand's my shot too. I like the ad side and how you feel. So in the morning lesson, they're saying how it's so important, the left hand, if you're a righty, the offhand on the backhand. And I remember my backhand got a lot better when I stopped letting go and held on a little longer. But they're saying how Thomas Mooster, he used to kind of let his arm dangle a little bit. Just want to know, since you had a great one-handed backhand, what do you think about that, and how do you do it?
Well, first of all, we all have to understand that there is no one way to do anything in tennis.
Right.
I mean, you can watch the best players in the world, and they all do something differently. They all have their own way. And I look at it as, if you do something, even if it's something we would say is really poor technique, but if you do it long enough, you will get proficient with it.
Yeah.
As an example, before I get into the left hand, there was a guy, I think it was 1990, a Spanish player by the name of Alberto Berasategui, got to the finals of the French Open, and you got to check this out. This man he used just one side of the racket for both shots.
Wow.
The ball never touched the other side of the strings. Now that is really unusual.
Yeah.
And it ain't easy.
No.
But he got to the finals of the French doing it. So that
Wow.
shows you how you can do weird things in this game. Now, is that the best way to go about it? Probably not.
But I heard Danny Visser takes all of his forehand volleys here. So
No, he's a lazy bugger, I guess. But the backhand, it's always been my best shot. It's much more natural for me, and because just to me it seems like when you turn for a backhand, first of all, just to get the racket back, most important, you have to turn your shoulders automatically. You don't have to do that on the forehand.
Yeah.
There's a lot more awkwardness on my right side, and I think on most people's right side.
Just more moving parts in general.
Yes, so much can go wrong. But the backhand can be so smooth, and it's just so natural. It's like throwing a frisbee.
Yeah.
Can you throw a frisbee from this side? Yes, but it's not as easy.
Yeah.
This can be just so smooth and easy. Now, I always thought that, at least in the old days, that probably 75 to 80% of professional tennis players lived and died on the backhand side.
Right.
This is this side that put dinner on the table. For amateurs, it's 99.9% they want to hit forehands.
Yeah.
For some reason, they just don't get the backhand side. Now the professional game has changed because of the equipment and the two hands and all that stuff. So it's more equality on both sides.
Right.
But in the old days, the forehand would break down. Backhand for most guys never broke down. So, but is the left hand really important? I couldn't believe what I was hearing from Mark Philippoussis this morning.
Really?
Sounded like I was out there giving the clinic. Because he basically said everything that I would have said.
Right.
This hand is what brings the racket back. You don't pull it back with the right hand. You pull it back with the left hand, assuming you're right-handed, of course.
Right.
You pull it back so you get the racket back in the ready position so much quicker on this side than you do on this side because you're using the left hand to pull it there.
Right.
And then it's just a matter of being patient, waiting for the ball, and swinging through it with good balance when the ball gets to you. Ken Rosewall is one of the funniest men in the world when it comes to the backhand. He arguably the greatest one-handed backhand of all time. And I used to watch him and we would do these corporate outings, and every guy would have to do one shot. And so obviously Ken Rosewall's doing the backhand.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, they had me demonstrating the forehand, and I'm thinking, I know nothing about it. I can't hit it, let alone tell you how to do it. But I would watch this man, and he didn't really know. He was so shy. He didn't know how to express what he does and how beautiful his backhand is. He would basically say, well, mates, basically just, get the racket back early, hit the ball out in front, and follow through. That's all there is to it? There's got to be more to it than that, Ken.
Yeah.
Come on. Share some of this wisdom with us. But maybe he doesn't even really know.
Some of the greats, they have a hard time
It's
explaining.
just so simple for him, but it's hard for him to express to somebody. Maybe he hasn't ever really thought about what he does. I don't know, but it's so funny. But the backhand can be so easy if you just do the little things correctly, which is use the left hand to get the racket back. Now, if Mooster dangles his arm, he's a unique talent that he can get away with that.
Yeah.
There's only one player I've ever seen in my life at the pro level who hits a backhand with one hand without ever putting his other hand on the racket. Only one.
Who?
His name is Christophe Roger Vasselin.
Oh.
His son plays on the tour now.
Okay.
Very good. Edouard.
I'm probably thinking of the son.
Yeah.
Because I know the name.
Yeah. Christophe played a little bit after I did. And it was always just one hand. And he was good enough to get away with it. But that's not the norm.
He must have been really strong right here.
You want to use your whole body on every shot you hit.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out, I see it more on the forehand where people just stand there with their left hand down like a dangling participle, and they hit balls and the left hand is never involved. That's the other thing Mark was talking about this morning.
Yeah.
Pointing out here. I'm thinking, this guy must have read my book. He must have, because that's what I would say. And I learned it from Chris Evert.
That's where you want it. Chris Evert, really?
Yes. I learned it from hitting balls with her.
Because she's done boots on the court, right? Chris Evert
Yes.
has come out.
Well, she's not been to an event, but she has expressed an interest
Okay.
in coming. It just hasn't worked out schedule-wise. But I mean, she's known for her backhand, obviously, but her forehand was terrific as well. But it's because she was out here. And as Mark was saying, put your hand out there, and that's where you want to make contact. And that's exactly
That's your
right.
spot.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
It's not. There's little things everybody can learn and try to incorporate into their game to help them improve.
All right, last question on the backhand. When do you release? I know everyone's probably a little different, but when do you let that left hand off?
I let it off just as I'm starting to bring the racket forward. And again, Mark was doing this morning. I believe that in order to maintain that good balance, which is so important on the backhand, as you release, your hands separate. One goes towards one fence and the other goes towards the other fence. So this is the back fence. That's the fence on the side of my opponent's side, and I've just hit a winner, and I'm loving every minute of it. But see, my balance is so good.
Yeah.
If you separate, if you don't, then you do have that hand down at the side.
Right.
So just let it go. It's nothing more than that. Very
It's a
simple.
Nice feeling.
It is.
Very balanced feeling.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you hit a winner down the line. Feel great.
Game,
feel
set,
great
and match.
Feel great about the interview.
Sorry, Rocket. I'll let you get me next time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And hey, if you're in Atlanta, I'd love to help out.
I will be. Thanks.
Thanks, Dick.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.